Starbucks situation, which to me was not racist, was racist. Is that racism?
The Starbucks
We have to
that
define
wasn't
racism.
racist. You don't think that was racist?
No, I don't think that was racist. I live in Philly.
So you think if those were white dudes hanging out in Starbucks, not buying anything, just sitting down, mind their own business, that they would have got fucked with the same exact energy?
Okay, so let's paint a picture. So first off, I live in Philadelphia. I'm not kidding. I wonder if sometimes when I'm there, I'm like, I wonder if any white people live here. Like Philadelphia is 44% black, not just excluding Hispanic, 44% black. It's unbelievable. Everyone who works in my build, everyone's black. It's like the weirdest thing. I'm like, this is a very black city, right? It's a bizarre city to be racist, outright racist in. Like you're dealing with black people all day. Is it possible, right, that this guy was just on like a power trips happen? I've seen it happen at the most bizarre places, and I'm like, all right.
Why are you talking about this if you don't know the facts? A woman called the police at that Starbucks, and the men were only there for a couple of minutes before that call was made. The white people filming it attest to that fact. The lengths she went to deny racism is astounding to me. Where is the logic? Did you just say that it's hard to be racist where there are a lot of black people around? What?
Again, agreed with Kim. Candace may not know the facts, but she knows which side to come out on. That is a problem. Hey guys, welcome back to Themis and Thought. Grab your coffee, water, tea, whatever you're drinking, go and get that. Today we're going to be talking about Candace Owens because 4 years ago, when Kimberly did these two videos, you would have thought Candace Owens would have gone back and be more accurate with her use of stats, and now we're in 2023. And I don't think Candace Owens cares about a stat. I think Candace just says what she wants to say, and that's just that on that. So let me just say something about this community, then we'll get into the mess, because we need to get something clear. Because I don't spend majority of the time on here talking about the system doesn't mean I don't know it exists, and it doesn't mean I don't care or I'm not aware of the political reality. And I think that's the problem. I think for a lot of people, for them to think about and talk about agency, they believe they have to completely disregard the system. And even if you do that, that's not so much of a problem. But I think a lot of people believe they have to pretend like the system is good already and equal, and I find that disingenuous. Now to this community. I am grateful, extremely grateful for this community. The one that allows disagreement. I am very grateful for that. I'm grateful that I don't have to ever feel like I come online and just say what I think you guys want to hear. In fact, I quite often do the opposite, and we have really robust and in-depth arguments on the live stream. So thank you all for that, and I will continue to allow disagreements because I think we need that lest we become a Candace Owens. That's the problem. What am I talking about? The Proud Family did a kind of reboot. I don't watch it. Sorry. And they did a poem where they were talking about reparation. Essentially, the poem can be summed up, I'm not going to play it here, in Black people, slaves, build this country, and they need reparation, right? Now, wherever along the political spectrum you fall and whatever you believe about reparation, go down in the comments, let me know your reason. I'm very much for reparation. If I hadn't made that clear, let me make that clear now. That's that on that. But we're not here to argue reparations, absolutely not. That's too easy. We're here to talk about Candace Owens' reaction to that video and how just ahistorical everything she presented was, and how either completely intellectually dishonest she is, or she literally don't have the range. You are either intellectually dishonest and thus pandering to your group, or you literally don't know. I don't know where to fall on this regarding what I believe about Candace Owens. You guys be a judge on that Before we get to her reaction and breaking that down, let's go back in time 4 years ago to what? For Harriet Kimberly Nicole Foster had to say about this, because I think it's important just to frame what is happening.
And also the most fun, I think, that I have on these college campuses is that you want to see if a black person, you want to see who the real racists are, tell people that as a black person, you don't see yourself as a victim. They lose their goddamn minds. That's why they hate me. Read the article. About me. They call me a neo-Nazi. I mean, The Guardian, right? Neo-Nazi, supporter of white supremacy. Yup. Because I believe that I can do whatever I want in my life because I have confidence. What does that tell you? That they're rushing to smear me because I believe that black people can do it without government handouts.
Oh, this is like an old school black Republican talking point. Oh my God. So funny. Okay, so first of all, I don't care what you see yourself as. I don't care if you see yourself as a black woman, a victim, whatever. That don't have anything to do with me. The problem is when you attempt to deny the existence of structural racism, classism, sexism, homophobia. That makes no sense, because in my mind, attempting to deny those structural forces that can be observed and quantified over time is as ridiculous as denying the existence of climate change or gravity. So you could stick your head in the sand and say, doesn't affect me, but your feet are still on the ground and the earth is still getting warmer. So the issue is not that Candace thinks that she's just the smartest and most hardworking black person to ever walk the face of the earth and she can do whatever she wants. Fine. She then has to parrot racist right-wing talking points. And one of those talking points is about how black people are takers and not makers.
Look, Kim is gonna, if you haven't, link for all my sources will be down in the description. Kimberly's videos will be down in the description. Please go over there and watch the full thing, because Candace Owens is, if you allow her, she will strawman every single argument coming at her and say something as really outrageous as people say she is neo this or neo that or white suprem whatever because of her confidence. Because of her confidence. Girl, no. Nobody cares about you and all your confidence, so it's an absolutely not for me. Kimberly, the video that I just showed you, she also did a video entitled Candace Owens is a Bad Actor. And let me play this small bit of her video. Again, both of these videos are really, really, really well done. Side note, random side note, I hate the fact that some of my favorite content creators online absolutely dislike each other and will never collaborate and actually went after each other. It's really sad, but that's neither here nor there. Here is Kim dragging Candace.
We just wanted to do this together. I met him and I said, look, I think that there needs to be a black revolution against the Democratic Party. I think I'm the person to lead it. Like, I'm your girl.
So, of course, a woman who wants to lead a conservative revolution among black people will know how to talk about racism, right? No. I first got suspicious when she said this.
What they said was most certainly racist.
Yes, the words are racist, right? Can somebody,
Right.
I guess the question is, can somebody say a word that is racist and not be a racist human being? Yes. I think, no, I'm going to tell you why yes, okay?
Okay.
It was somebody stand up I was watching. I actually don't remember who it was. Like, maybe it was Louis C.K., I don't know. But he was saying how he, like, instantly turns into a racist. Like, if somebody cuts him off and it's like a Chinese person, like, he like instantly the first thing he has like something to do with him being Chinese, right?
Right.
And there's a little bit of that in all of us. Like, I was walking through New York City the other day, and like a huge bus like just happened to like stop in front of me, and like literally 45 Asians got off, and suddenly I was just like, I couldn't like walk around. I'm like, oh, I was like, why do Asians always travel in packs, right? Like, the most bizarre thing. Like, I don't have an issue with them taking a bus and traveling, and then afterwards I giggled.
But it got a lot worse when she started talking about that Starbucks incident in Philadelphia.
The Starbucks situation, which to me was not racist, was racist. Is that racism?
The Starbucks
We have to
that
define
wasn't
racism.
racist. You don't think that was racist?
No. I don't think that was racist. I live in Philly.
So you think if those were white dudes hanging out in Starbucks, not buying anything, just sitting down, mind their own business, that they would have got fucked with the same exact energy?
So let's play a different picture. So first off, I live in Philadelphia. I'm not kidding. I wonder if sometimes when I'm there, I'm like, I wonder if any white people live here. Like Philadelphia is 44% black, not just excluding Hispanic, 44% black. It's unbelievable. Everyone who works in my building, everyone's black. It's like the weirdest thing. I'm like, this is a very black city, right? It's a bizarre city to be racist, outright racist in. Like you're dealing with black people all day. Is it possible, right, that this guy was just on like a power trips happen? I've seen it happen at the most bizarre places, and I'm like, all right.
Why are you talking about this if you don't know the facts? A woman called the police at that Starbucks, and the men were only there for a couple of minutes before that call was made. The white people filming it attest to that fact. The lengths she went to deny racism is astounding to me. Where is the logic? Did you just say that it's hard to be racist where there are a lot of black people around? What? Say that in the South where the majority of black Americans live. Or in urban enclaves where black people have a lot of interaction with other races. No, there's never been any racial issues in Los Angeles or Boston or Detroit. Girl, does she know any black people? Does she talk to any black people? Does she read about black people? What's crazy to me is Candace did not know facts in this interview, but she knew which side to be on.
Look, again, agreed with Kim. Candace may not know the facts, but she knows which side to come out on. That is a problem. How are you so confident about your position without ever knowing the facts? Like, that doesn't make any sense. The length you will go to defend racism is absurd. I showed all of that to lead up to the fact is she has not changed. She's still doing it. She's even willing to be ahistorical, right? To ignore historical fact and reality in an effort to defend the system, to defend her position about a cartoon that doesn't matter. Like why? The Newsweek is not that slow. This literally, the Grammys just happened. Like, drag the Grammys, drag everyone in the Grammys. I will be doing that shortly. But there is no reason for you to be going after the quote-unquote Proud family if you are going to have to, ignore realities about history to do so. Like, why are you doing that? All right, so let's get into the commentary for today, because the length she will go to defend racism and white supremacy literally makes no sense to me. I don't understand why people do this. You can have your political view, your political opinion, your political affiliation without having to defend every aspect of something that is horrendous. Like, don't do that. As a note, I don't give advice to the podcast, but please don't do that. All right. Here is what she had to say regarding the Proud family.
Again, what does this rely upon? Emotion. This is like Black Lives Matter. It just really was an ad for Black Lives Matter. People to be angry. They sound angry when they're on stage. Slaves built this country. Slaves built this country. Slaves built this country. Everything that we have, we owe to slavery and slaves. And this is an argument for reparations. We've heard this nonsense over and over again from people who've never bothered to open a history book. Or maybe they have, actually. Maybe it's because they've opened history books in school that they learn this garbage nowadays. Actually, I would say it is because they open history books that they learn this garbage, which is just completely being washed with progressive ideals and not based in fact at all anymore. I actually had, Mediaite, whatever that website is, write an article, hit piece on me for telling the truth about the history of slavery by saying that the majority of people did not have slaves. Obviously, a very small fraction of uber wealthy people had slaves, people that were fighting the Civil War. It was a poor man's fight and a rich man's war. They were not fighting to keep slavery in place. They didn't have slaves, right? There was other components of the Civil War. People don't like to talk about that. Well, I'm going to say something else that's going to offend people because it's true, right? The idea that this country and the success that this country had is because slaves built this country. History betrays this narrative, okay? Let me first say, obviously, we all know slavery was abhorrent. It was an abhorrent practice all over the world, did not begin in America. And actually did not begin with white people, right? It still goes on today, and it is Black and brown people that keep those institutions up. And actually, white people were the first people to end the institutions of slavery. France, the United Kingdom, followed by America. we were the first to put an end and to abolish slavery. So there's no question that it was an abhorrent practice. There's no question that it leaves a stain on all of the histories around the world, right? Forget just American history, all around the world, it leaves a stain. But the idea that America was built because of slaves is so foolish. There's a reason why when the Civil War ended and when slavery was abolished, America was thrust into the Industrial Revolution, because in the absence of using slaves, they had to come up with something else, and that something else was machines. And people were able to work faster and able to work smarter. In fact, prolonging slavery actually slowed progress down. Are you offended? Are you offended by the truth? I want you to be super offended by the fact that human hands cannot do what machines can do. And so what happened was when they started realizing that we cannot use human beings, we had to come up with machines, they began coming up with all types of machines. And the people that built America were those that were able to come up with those machines, which thrust us into the Industrial Revolution. So be upset, leave a bad comment about it. I really don't care. Actually, write an article. Let the headline be, Candace says that slaves slow down progress, whatever you want that headline.
I think there should be a record. Like, I did not know you could fit so much misinformation in one small segment. Like, we're going to go through this part by part, and I'm going to highlight where she is wrong. Actually, I'm not going to highlight it. Let me just run it through, and I may or may not include the clips where she's saying the stuff that I'm rebutting, because it's so much. First of all, France could not be the first country to abolish slavery. It literally is impossible, right? If the colony at the time, Haiti, declared independence, fought the first black country to kick a colonizer out, declared independence, and abolished the institution of slavery. If Haiti did that where France was their literal overlord, right? France cannot be the first one. So you're taking credit from Haiti and you're giving it to France in terms of being the first? Yeah, no, I'm not about to let that slide. No. We're going to... Also, this idea that only black and brown countries are having slaves now, absolutely ridiculous. Hello, Russia? Oh, all right, let's break this all down, because the entire thing is wrong. The whole thing is wrong. Like, every part of her speech is wrong except, and there is dispute here, except her last point, which actually works against her, right? This idea that after slavery, we were thrust into this industrial revolution where we saw an explosion in terms of improving economically, right? And people's lives generally. That argument actually pushes back against the idea that America somehow grew a conscience and people fought against slavery in an effort to live out the ideal that all men are created equal. Rather, it switches that and make it a sort of economic imperative to end slavery, which literally just makes us look bad and make America look terrible, because it's no longer about a moral question anymore, but an economic. All right, I'm talking a lot. So let's break this down piece by piece and go through it. Okay, so the first claim that Candace Owens made is that not a majority of people in the South had slaves, rather only a small fraction of uber wealthy Southerners had slaves.
Write an article, hit piece on me for telling the truth about the history of slavery by saying that the majority of people did not have slaves. Obviously, a very small fraction of uber wealthy people had slaves.
Obviously, a very small fraction of uber wealthy people had slaves.
Now, look, I wish I could tell you where she got that from. I think knowing where she got that from would have been important. The best I can come up with is this debunk theory that, what was it, only 1%, it should be flashing across. Duke University did a research on this. So I will be posting it across the screen as I speak, but that only 1% of Southerners had slaves. This was debunked. This is not true. And I'm going to have a few arguendo addendum to this point. So this idea that only 1% of Southerners had slaves is not true. The stat actually says that only 1% of Southerners owned over 200 people at any one time. That's the stat. If you're talking about families who own slaves, it's actually upwards of 30% of free families in the Confederacy owned slaves. And we're talking around 1860. I should be flashing across the screen also. That means about every third white person had a commitment, I think the writing was, to the institution of slavery. Upwards of 30%. Not 1%, not a fraction of wealthy Southerners. I don't know where Candace Owens got that from, but it's definitely, absolutely incorrect. All right, so that was the first point of contention. Okay, so she also said that the slavery was not the reason for the Civil War, and that it was a poor man's fight in a rich man's war.
People that were fighting the Civil War, it was a poor man's fight in a rich man's war. They were not fighting to keep slavery in place. They didn't have slaves, right? There was other components of the Civil War. People don't like to talk about that. Well, I'm going to say something else that's going to offend people because it's true.
Absolutely does not make sense. First and foremost, literally, the states that were seceding at the time, not all of them wrote why they were seceding, but of all the states that were seceding, 4 of them, at least 4, came out and explained why they were seceding, they were leaving the Union. All of them said it was due to slavery and their right to retain slave. A lot of people usually say the Civil War was not about slavery, it was about states' rights. Yes, states' right to maintain the institution of slavery. Let me put them up here. These are excerpts. Again, I will have links to these states declaring why they're leaving, right? They had declaration of causes for seceding, right? And I'll link that down below. But in sum, Mississippi said the following: "Our position is," and I quote, "thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery." Texas says the servitude of the African race as existing in these states is mutually beneficial to both bond and free, and is abundantly authorized and justified by the experience of mankind and the revealed will of the Almighty Creator, as recognized by all Christian nations. South Carolina also did the same about slavery, and Georgia did the same. We are not going to pretend. Some people were saying, oh, Lincoln. People were upset that their institution, their property in their sense, slavery, was going to come to an end. Every writing coming out of these states explaining why they were leaving the Union expressed to some degree or another that it had to do with the institution of slavery. We're not about to sit here and rewrite history. All right, let's move on from that point. Okay, so Candace also makes the claims that the success of this country is not predicated on slavery.
Right? The idea that this country and the success that this country had is because slaves built this country. History betrays this narrative, okay? Let me first say, obviously, we all know slavery was abhorrent. It was an abhorrent practice all over the world and not begin in America.
one would argue, and I won't put a citation up for this, but one would argue that you have a leg up, an advantage economically if you have free labor, not just from the individuals you own, but their offsprings and their offsprings, right? And you can rent them out and use them in whatever way you can. I don't know to what extent that contribution to the American economy led us to be where we are. I don't know if in an alternate universe we could have made it to where we are as a nation, but I'm not going to go back and forth on that. You can fight with the people who are doing the research about the economy and how we got to where we got. I'm not about to fight there. And I think there is some level of subjectivity here. Not fighting on that. Let's continue.
And actually did not begin with white people, right? It still goes on today, and it is Black and brown people that keep those institutions up. And actually, white people were the first people to end the institutions of slavery. France, the United Kingdom, followed by America. We were the first to put an end and to abolish slavery. So there's no question that it was an abhorrent practice. There's no question that it leaves a stain on all of the histories around the world, right? Forget just American history, all around the world, it leaves a stain.
You have to be all kinds of intellectually dishonest to think that France was the first country to abolish slavery. First and foremost, France had a little colony in Haiti, right? Haiti was a French colony, I think Saint-Domingue. It doesn't make sense when we know the history of what happened in Haiti, where they revolted, kicked out the French, declared independence, and abolished slavery, while France was still trying to maintain control over its colonies and its slaves and property. Haiti would have been the absolute... Let's do it. Haiti declared independence and abolished slavery in 1804. Now, let's see when France abolished slavery. Oh, let me find out. It was in 1848. So you're telling me that you just came on the internet to say that France was the first country to abolish slavery while these Black and brown countries kept it? That literally makes no sense. Also, if we're defining contemporarily slavery as the interest in property in a human being, so slavery is the idea that a person can own another person's personhood, right? That you can own someone and you can have property interest in an individual. We still have, quote unquote, white countries that do it, i.e. Russia. Let me pull this up. Russia is number 7, I believe, 7 or 8 in the number of slaves that still exist in the country. Now, obviously, this is hard to track because slavery is more of an underground phenomena in most countries, but here it is. So no, it's not just Black and brown countries. We have white countries up in there too, so let's not do that. You're either lying or just, which is intellectual dishonesty, or like you literally don't have the range for this conversation because that makes no sense. That claim makes absolutely no sense.
But the idea that America was built because of slaves is so foolish. There is a reason why when the Civil War ended and when slavery was abolished, America was thrust into the Industrial Revolution. Because in the absence of using slaves, they had to come up with something else. And that something else was machines. And people were able to work faster and able to work smarter. In fact, prolonging slavery actually slowed progress down. Are you offended? Are you offended by the truth? I want you to be super offended by the fact.
So Candace's final point is one that a lot of people modern day philosophers have argued about. Republicans generally don't take this position, which is really funny to hear. The position essentially is modernization in terms of technology ended slavery, and it wasn't the moral obligation felt by Americans that ended slavery. Now, if you understand what I'm saying, you see how that is used by Pan-Africans and progressives to talk about the fact that America has not healed from what caused slavery. Whatever that, what someone call it, the demonic the demonic sense of entitlement that requires one to feel that they can own another human being, that did not disappear with the ending of slavery, because ending slavery was more economically expedient than having slaves. So the fact that she's making this argument highlights the fact that morally America hasn't changed. Now, I don't know where you fall on this, but the fact that she would do that is kind of funny. So I will read this and I'll put this out there for you guys. Was slavery the engine of economic growth? This was done by digitalhistory.edu. I read this a while ago and I found it again. So I'll read the first part for you. Few works of history have exerted as powerful an influence as a book published in 1944 called Capitalism and Slavery. Its author, Eric Williams, later the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, charged that black slavery was the engine that propelled Europe's rise to global economic dominance. He maintained that Europeans' conquest and settlement of the New World depended on the enslavement of millions of black slaves who helped amass the capital that financed the Industrial Revolution. Europe's economic progress, he insisted, came at the expense of black slaves whose labor built the foundations of modern capitalism. In addition, Williams contended that it was economic self-interest and not moral convictions that ultimately led to the abolishing of slavery, or to the abolish of slavery. It was only after slavery came to be regarded as an impediment to industrial progress that abolitionists in Europe and the United States succeeded in suppressing the slave trade and abolishing slavery. Again, the sentiment essentially means that it's not conscience, it's not morality that drove us into this new era where all men are created equal. It is an economic interest. It wasn't to meet the American ideal that the founding fathers put forward. It was, hey, yeah, we don't need these black people anymore to work for free. And in fact, doing so is slowing down progress. So let's free them and use these technology instead, and let's use them in other ways, i.e., I don't know, prison and the 13th Amendment. We're not getting into that here. I'm just pointing out that it's very strange to hear a Republican who will argue tooth and nail that there were Southern people who did not have anything to do with slavery and wanted it down because it was abhorrent, make the argument that slavery ended because technology was better. It's not that inconsistent. I have to read one more introduction. I'll end it here, because I'm not saying she's wrong about this, but I don't think she would be on the side of the politician and philosophers and people who are essentially progressives who articulate this claim that she's now making in defense of her position. It says, the abolition of slavery in the Atlantic world occurred during the 19th century, but its origin are generally recognized to be the intellectual ferment of the 18th century Enlightenment, the political turmoil of the Age of Revolution, and the economic transformation associated with the development of modern industrial capitalism. Although anti-slavery ideas circulated much more widely beginning in the 1760s, the first sustained effort to do something about slavery began in the 1780s, particularly with the British campaign to end slave trade. The revolution in Saint-Domingue, which is, again, modern-day Haiti, added a new sense of urgency to the issue in France, Great Britain, and the United States. But it was not until the first decade of the 19th century that the British and U.S. government abolished the trade and made an effort to suppress it through the Atlantic world. Slowly thereafter, slavery would be outlawed in many of the new independent Latin American nations throughout the British Empire in 1833 and the French colonies in 1848. Not until the 1860s would slavery come to a halt in the United States, followed by Cuba, Brazil in the 1880s. Scholars have demonstrated that there were many reasons for the abolition of slavery, including the heroic efforts of enslaved people and radical abolitionists alike. As important as moral outrage and popular pressure were to the effort, however, abolition was also facilitated by changing economic and political circumstances. Again, most of the writing flashing across the stream is about the fact that we cannot say America is, has been, or will ever be moral because its incentives were primarily about economic growth, not about human and the human condition. The fact that conservatives, i.e. Candace Owens, sit there and make this argument that, yeah, it's not about moral and they didn't think it's very strange to see them do it and make this argument and make it seem as if this fits their narrative. It doesn't. You want to say, Candace Owens, that people saw the inhumane treatment of Black people and decided to rise up and change the system. White people lost their life fighting to help Black people. This is the narrative you want to put forward. That narrative doesn't work if you're saying it's economic incentive and expediency that allowed for the change in system. Look, I'm done. I'm not going to go any further. It is what it is. This was fun. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Candace Owens, please do better in terms of fact-checking yourself, doing some kind of research. I don't know. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye.